Do churches pay taxes? The answer may surprise you. The very short answer is yes, but not as much as other organizations. But let us try to do justice to the question in our answer in just a few minutes. In other words, here is the medium-length answer. This will be specific to the United States of America, but similar ideas are found in many other places. When you drive through town and see a church on the street and you ask yourself, does that church pay taxes? The answer will depend on a few things. First, church may refer to the denomination, or it may refer to just that congregation. Parishes within the Roman Catholic Church or a diocese of the Episcopalian Church, for example, are legally bound to their larger church bodies. Most other Protestants, however, legally operate as individual congregations. Their denomination may have rules for its members, but the tax status of each church will depend on how the locals handle it. Second, we must ask, are they a non-for-profit? We call this 501c3 status. When an organization claims to be about the common good, working to improve their community, nation, or the world, they can file for this 501c3 with the government. These organizations are not supposed to seek to profit their shareholders, stakeholders, owners, or even employees. Because all this would-be profit is supposed to benefit the community, they are exempt from paying certain taxes. It is worth noting that this does not always work out that way. Some large medical systems and schools are considered non-for-profit, for example, even though they do not operate much differently than their for-profit counterparts. Some congregations inherit their 501c3 status by virtue of being part of a denomination, like a diocese or synod. Most congregations seek and receive their 501c3 status as individual organizations, as local churches. Though more rare, there are also many churches who do not seek this status at all. There is a thread of Christianity which is suspicious of government to the point that they prefer not to file at all, because they do not want the oversight that comes with it. By the way, that oversight is fairly small. An IRS rule prohibits religious organizations from endorsing specific candidates, but it does not prohibit them from taking stances on political issues. So, does that settle it? When a church seeks non-for-profit status, they become tax-exempt and therefore most churches do not pay taxes. Not quite. They are specifically exempt from 3 types of taxes. If they register with their state, they receive proof of their tax-exempt status. And most retailers will allow them to file this proof and thereafter avoid paying sales tax at that retailer. They cannot simply refuse to pay the tax, but must go through this process. As a result, churches pay little to no sales tax when purchasing supplies that are directly related to their work. Another tax they are exempt from is property tax. Depending on the state, whether the congregation owns property and the value of that property, the impact of this can vary wildly. For some congregations, it makes no difference, while others save thousands of dollars each year. There is an exception here, though. If a church owns property and then rents it out, they must pay property tax on it. Profiting as landlords is considered outside the scope of their religious functions. The third and final type is corporate tax. Note, however, that as churches function on donations, rather than, for example, sales, there would be little to no corporate tax to speak of anyway. Only if the church started earning income on a paid service, such that their income surpassed their expenses, would this be a consideration. Now let us consider a couple curveballs. As religious organizations, churches have some rules specific to them. For example, clergy are considered traveling employees, grouped in with traveling nurses and military personnel. This means their income designated for housing expenses is tax-exempt. These professions are considered a benefit to their communities and by definition move often, so the government does not tax expenses related to moving. Though this may change as it has become increasingly common for clergy to own their own property and stay put for extended periods of time. It gets even more complicated though. Say your church calls a pastor or priest and they live in a house the church owns. We might call it a parsonage or rectory or vicarage or something else. The church does not pay taxes on that house, but in a roundabout way, the minister does. The estimated value of living there is considered taxable income. Their tax official will find the estimated value of living in a house in their area and add that to their cash salary when filing taxes. Moreover, clergy are considered self-employed for the purposes of Social Security and Medicare, so they must pay their own taxes on a quarterly basis, including 15% of their income just to those two programs. A minister living in housing provided by the church, therefore, pays 15.3% of the estimated value of renting a home in that community. If the average rent and utilities in your community is $2,000 per month, that minister is paying $3,072 per year just on this one tax on their housing alone. So where does that leave us? Do churches pay taxes? Like we said up top, yes, but not as much as others. Clergy, on the whole, pay less tax overall, but it is probably more than you realized. That house the church owns, for which they do not pay property tax, is considered a revenue source for its occupants and generates tax dollars in other ways. Of course, a neighbor paying that same $2,000 per month would earn that income as cash, having been taxed on it in addition to paying property tax. They would also pay sales tax on supplies needed to maintain the home, so that neighbor would, overall, contribute more in taxes than the minister living next door. Are there other exceptions or variations on this that you know about? If you are from a country other than the United States, how does it vary in your context? If you would share that in the comments, it would be greatly appreciated, as we could then learn from each other. If you have any other questions related to church in general, or the Bible specifically, please do leave that in the comments, as there is always more to explore. Lastly, if you have not yet already, please do consider subscribing or following. It costs you nothing but supports our work here tremendously. Thank you for your help in this regard. We appreciate you. Hopefully we can be of help to you. It just takes a few minutes a day to learn all about the Bible. And that is the sort of content we hope to share with you. Remember that you are loved and you matter. God bless you. Amen.